Hello and welcome to another episode of PeakAlpha Strobe Light Show. This is our 10th episode, so happy birthday to us. To celebrate, we've stepped outside and we are in this beautiful residential layout close to the Banerghatta National Park. Get ready for lights, camera and action because we have a photographer on the show today. So welcome to the show, Madhu.
Thanks, Anupama.
Such a pleasure to have you on the show. So you're a chartered accountant and photography is a hobby, but especially macro photography. So tell us, what is macro photography?
Well, macro photography is a close-up sort of a photography, typically of subjects which is not visible to the naked eye.
Okay.
So typically, you kind of focus on those small and tiny subjects like water droplets, or it could be insects, or even small details within a flower. So those are the things that you can't see through naked eye. You kind of focus using equipments like macro lenses, which gives that ability for you to focus on those small details and capture those beauty.
So are you carrying a macro lens?
Yeah, this is a macro lens.
Okay.
This is a digital SLR, as you can see. And this is a 100 mm macro, specifically for the macro subject. So this lens is designed mainly for the macro subject.
Okay.
Right.
So what got you interested in macro photography?
That I'm a chartered accountant,
Yes.
right? As an accountant, when we kind of submit financial data to top leadership or to investors, it's very important that we have eye for detail for every number that gets reported. So for me, it has always been like that. For me, it's very important that I have an eye for detail for any of the subjects that I kind of focus on. So that eventually kind of overlaid into the photography skills as well.
Okay. So then is macro photography a very recent interest or a hobby, or is it something that you grew up?
Actually, if I were to talk about my interest in photography, there are two different phases in life which kind of got me interested into it. The first was during the 1980s when the cable TV generation started.
Yeah.
That's the time when I got exposed to channels like National Geography and Discovery channels. Be it wildlife, be it birds, be it small insect sort of documentary videos. That's what kind of inclined me towards that nature's beauty, which I actually wanted to capture. And the second part of it, where I actually started executing it, is while I started watching movies like the one which Mani Ratnam had directed in 1992, Roja.
Oh, yes.
A very popular movie.
Yeah.
I still remember the director of photography was Santosh Shivan. Excellent photography. The way he portrayed the nature, the way the movie came out, it was absolutely, interesting, and it was very fascinating. So that's when I actually invested in a film SLR camera, and I started experimenting my interests in terms of photography. That was my start.
Nice. Very nice. Yeah. So this is our Instagram generation, right? Like we are always photographing our lives. What do you like to photograph?
For me, it again goes back to the nature sort of a photography. From my childhood, actually, I was inclined towards painting. I was very interested in painting. And if you recall, in our childhood, the most simple art or painting that we do is two mountains. A sunrise, a hut. So that kind of grew into actual photography in terms of landscapes and stuff. So my interest is more in terms of nature. I don't do much of people photography, including myself. I'm not a selfie fan, to say. And even when I go on vacations with my family, I always get this complaints from my family saying, you never take our photographs. You're always, capturing nature. But that's my interest.
Photographers are also great storytellers, right? Because there's a story behind every photo. Do you want to share a story about a photograph that you're particularly fond of?
One of the biggest values that my parents taught me, and in fact every parents teach their children, is to do with valuing money, value for money. So for my daughter, I keep telling this because the generation that I grew in and where our children are growing, it's totally different. Uh, if I were to talk about my parents, my dad, he's an SSLC pass out. He had his own financial constraints because of which he couldn't go for higher education.
Okay.
So he grew in times when it was really tough for him to, raise himself financially, to raise a family. So he always taught us while we were children, me and my brother, of course, he was teaching us the value for money concept.
Oh, okay.
So that kind of got embedded in me quite a lot. And I try to teach my daughter the same. Though when my daughter was born, I was in that phase of my career where I had to travel a lot. So everywhere I had been, I used to get her something or the other.
Okay.
It's like I wanted that for my daughter, I got it.
Right.
But children being children, even today, even though she has got all the toys, all the required stuff, they still, are inclined to buy the same stuff.
Okay.
So I keep teaching my daughter saying, listen, don't waste money on something that you already have.
Right.
If it is absolutely necessary, that's when you need to spend money. So what I do is I typically take my daughter to places where we tend to shop. I can give you one small example, going back to your question. My wife actually had spotted one a fountain, a clay model fountain, which she wanted to buy, a terracotta sort of a product, sold by some street vendors. So I had to go pick it up. So I took my daughter there. And while I was waiting for the product to be delivered by the street vendor, I saw his children actually sitting there and painting
The pots.
the pots.
Okay.
So I immediately took my camera. I took a photograph of that because that's a reality check.
Right.
It's such a contrast of wealth indifference between
Disparity.
people
Yeah.
who are rich versus people who are struggling to earn their bread on a daily basis. And that's the moment I captured, and I told my daughter, saying that you need to be happy in your life because you've got all the things that children like them who don't get.
have. So we know that you're a chartered accountant, Madhu. So what do you do in your day job?
Okay, so basically I'm working for a company by name Trane Technologies. Erstwhile this was called as the Ingersoll Rand. I don't know if you've heard of it.
Yes, I've heard. Yeah. So you seem to have a pretty good head for finance. And why did you decide to seek the help of a financial advisor?
Right. If I have to reflect on the attitude or the nature of my father, he is very old school and very conservative. During his earning period, the only investment planning was fixed deposits. My dad always, like I was talking about him before, he had a very big challenge in terms of securing himself financially. He was not very willing to take risks in terms of investments, be it real estate, be it anything else like shares or anything of that sort. His lookout was always fixed deposits. At least that's what I've seen growing up in my childhood. So at one point of time when my career was doing really good in terms of having a good financial, packages coming through, that's the time when I started thinking, what should I do? Should I get in like my dad, just do fixed deposits, which I already was doing because that was the advice I was getting from my dad,
Of course,
saying
yeah.
fixed deposits, that's most secure, put it there. But the interest returns was not that great.
Yeah.
But then my brother kind of introduced me to this concept of mutual funds because he had started working with PeakAlpha.
I see.
Priya, who's the co-founder, right, of
Yeah.
PeakAlpha, she is the one who manages his portfolio.
Okay.
So then he spoke to me. He said, "Why don't you, start looking at this?"
I see.
When I got the chance to speak to Sujit, who is my investment planner, he kind of laid out the whole concept of why we should go ahead for investments, how we should plan for our future.
Okay.
That's the time I started thinking really loud in terms of saying, yes, this is exactly what I need to do to secure my future.
What kind of benefits do you see for yourself since you've, become a part of the PeakAlpha family?
For me, the main thing is security. That's exactly what I look for when we talk about this investment planning. So at least now I feel light-hearted when I say this because I know for a fact that I've secured my family. I've secured my daughter's education, I've secured my daughter's future. My wife is secured, so in case of any uncertainties, I know for a fact that they can continue without any hassles.
Correct.
So that's my actual lookout than looking at doubling my wealth. That's not my objective at all. I shouldn't be saying this as an accountant, but as a person, for me, security is what matters. Yeah.
So Madhu, have you started monetizing your hobby?
No, actually,
Not yet.
it's just a hobby. I have no intentions of
Monetizing it.
yeah, not monetizing it, at least at this point of time. See, I'm not a professional photographer.
Right.
I'm an amateur photographer.
Yeah.
Whatever I do is for my own happiness. So
Okay.
I do participate in competitions where I've got some recognitions globally,
Yeah.
but nothing as a monetary stuff.
Yeah.
As long as I get the happiness in terms of my work getting recognized, I'm pretty happy with that right now.
Talking about recognitions, recently one of your photographs got picked up at an international showing, right?
Yeah.
Display.
Yeah.
So can you tell us about it and what was it?
There is a photography portal where there is an invite that is sent to worldwide photographers. It's called gurushots.com. In that, it's more like a competition. It's a photography competition. The concept in that website is you post your photographs, you claim votes for it. Quite a few of my photos got high votes, and it got digitally showcased as well.
Your Instagram handle is What's the F Photography. What does it mean?
Well, F stands for the aperture values.
Okay.
Typically, in a DSLR, it works like a human eye. The pupil that you have in the
Yeah.
eye lens. The closer that you hold the finger, the pupil either dilates or contracts. So DSLR lens works exactly like that. When we talk about the F numbers, the aperture values, it depends on the lens capacity. So you can see that here it is 1:2.8. This is the aperture values.
Okay.
2.8 is the widest aperture value, which means if you hold the finger very close to your eye and observe the tip of the finger, the background becomes blur. 2.8 value actually does that.
Okay.
So in macro photography, when you're focusing on a particular subject, you try to blur the background. And the subject stands out.
Pops out.
And the sharpness and the...
Do you do still photography only or do you do videos as well?
Still photography is what I focus on.
Okay.
Because one of the videos that I took, mainly when we talk about video sort of a capturing, when I had been to a vacation in Sirsi, North Karnataka, I stayed in one of the homestays. It was completely driven by nature. And during that nature walk, I noticed one particular spider, building the cobweb. And luckily for me, the lighting worked out really well. It was during winter time. The sun was exactly behind the cobweb, and the light was cutting through the cobweb. So when I focused on the subject, which is the spider building the cobweb, I got an excellent lighting with a glare. And I literally could capture the minute details, but I was trying to capture it using SLR. But I did not have a tripod at that point of time, so it was really difficult to have a steady hand in terms of capturing that, but yet it came out really well. I did get good recognition for that.
Let's do a rapid fire round, Madhu.
All right.
Okay. If you're in a park and you see a beetle, that's a bug, and Deepika Padukone, who would you photograph?
Well, for a start, I would take the bug, ask Deepika to extend her hand, put it in her hand, but definitely focus on the bug. Because like I said, you get to see people very often, not the bug.
Right, okay. Your one guilty spending pleasure?
2 years back, I would have said a lot of sweets and ice cream. But now it's photography. Like I said, in the competition, I spend, not lots, but good amount of money for me to get into the contests. That is my guilty.
Okay. One money rule that you live by?
Spend wisely and not necessarily, excessively rather.
Okay. What did you do with your first salary and how old were you when you earned it?
Well, I think 24 years when I got my first job break, which was in one of a small coffee trading company called Ramesh Exports. If I remember it right, I think my take-home salary was around 6K per month. The first month I got that salary, I got it in an envelope, and I literally came home and I handed over the envelope to my mom.
Aw,
That was the
sweet.
first thing I remember.
Okay. What's your relationship with money like?
I think I would say touch me not unless and until it's absolutely necessary.
Okay. And what kind of a spender are you?
If it's a big spend, definitely I look for an ROI. If it's a small spend, I just look at the happiness behind it. That's how I do it.
Okay. And one unforgettable lesson you have learnt about money, and from whom did you learn it?
Okay, I think I'll have to go back to the Ramesh Exports sort of a scenario. One of the cashiers or the person working in that company reached out to me asking if I could lend money to her, and she promised in return some interest for that money, which she was going to hold on for like 2-3 months and return it back, but she wanted to pay interest for that. While I was drawn to it because of the characteristics of interest and extra pocket money, I thought I will take advice from one of the senior accountants over there. And when I reached out to that person, he said, listen, when it comes to money, always be very careful because you never know how people would, kind of get stuck with, difficult challenges where they might not be able to return the money.
Return it, yeah.
So that was a one good lesson that I learned. That was an eye opener for me.
Okay. So complete the following sentences. When it comes to saving money, you.
I am pretty old school and very conservative.
Okay. My family thinks I have too much of this product.
Too much of this.
Camera equipment. Okay.
Yeah.
Last question. If I won a lottery of 50 crore rupees, I would
keep what is necessary for me, and the rest of it I might either use it for my own pleasure or charity.
Okay.
I believe in holding on to what is absolutely necessary for self and let go of the rest.
Okay. But I can't let you go without telling us how to take a good selfie, Madhu. Please tell. What is it the angle? Is it the light? What do I have to do? Do I have to tilt my face?
I think it goes on the mood of the individual.
Okay.
Because selfie is nothing but your own reflection. So if you are in a good mood, you want to take a selfie, then from a technical perspective, you just have to look at the lighting. You just
Okay.
have to look at the background. It totally depends on what you want to capture as part of the memory, and other than just your happy
Face.
self,
Okay.
right? If you want a good background, I would suggest standing in a place where you get a good landscape sort of a background,
Right.
and capturing it with the right angle. Or if it is anything to with people, the happy occasion, and you try to focus accordingly. That would be my way
Advice.
of looking at it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what would you advise if I'm taking pictures of really small objects like flowers or insects or butterflies?
Technically, I would recommend having a good light. Definitely, a tripod is recommended, especially when you're capturing photographs using equipments like this, because it's pretty heavy, like I said. So, lighting and the right equipment, and the eye for detail. That's the most important.
Thank you
All
so
right.
much. I think we've got Paisa Vasool from this episode.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Anupama.
That was a total Paisa Vasool episode, wasn't it? You got a lesson in how to take a selfie and one on macro photography. If you want to see more photos by Madhu, we'll leave you with details about his socials. Do follow us on PeakAlpha socials as well. We have posts every day, financial tips and quizzes too. If you've missed any of the old episodes of the Strobe Light Show, you can catch them all on peakalpha.com under the Insights section. And if this episode has wakened the inner photographer in you, send us 2 of your pictures. We'll have Madhu play judge and jury, and he will choose 3 of the best photographs. You know where to mail them to, hello@peakalpha.com. That's all from us, and we'll see you around on season 2. Bye.